Morning, Bill.
Morning, Mark. How are you today?
Chilly.
I noticed that you look like you're going to the snow. You're all with your parka on.
Well, my first appointment this morning, I was sitting outside at a cafe, and that was my choice to sit outside, but maybe I should regretted that. But anyway.
That's right. Well, things are happening around the world, Mark. It's a worrying time.
It's an interesting time. I liked your little post you did on the Cuban Missile Crisis. I remember that too. But anyway.
Well, just history keeps repeating itself.
It's very sad.
And there's, I guess, bugger all, I'll say, that we can do about it sitting out here in Australia, but thank God we are here in Australia.
Right over
That's the blessing. Yeah.
Which way does the wind blow with radiation clouds? But anyway, let's not talk about it.
Yeah.
Who's today's guest, Bill?
All right. This morning we're interviewing Maree Harris, and we'll get into Maree's history. But I've actually used Maree's services in a project that I've been running for a business in Geelong, and I think it's been very successful. But welcome, Maree.
Thanks, Bill and Mark.
Pleasure, Maree. So, Maree, our usual opening line is, where did you go to primary school?
I went to primary school at Birchip, at a Catholic school in Birchip, which is right up in the Victorian Mallee. If you draw a line between Ballarat and Mildura on the Sunraysia Highway, it's about halfway.
Well, Maree, the Birchip Cropping Group is very well known.
I know. The Birchip Cropping Group, which is an international research body, has revitalised Birchip completely when loads of the towns around there are dying. So we have all these PhDs and high-level executives all coming to live in a little town that's got about 1,500 people in it. So it's been a huge thing for the town.
That's fantastic. And from high school then, with Ballarat?
We went, schools at that stage only went to about year 9 in Birchip, and both the state high school and the Catholic school. So I went to boarding school. Most of the people up there went to boarding school at Sacred Heart College in Ballarat. Yes, I was there for 4 years, I think.
So you'd be used to the cold.
Yes,
is that
right? yes.
And at high school, did you have any ideas, visions, dreams about what you wanted to be when you grew up? Since
primary school, I'd always been going to be a teacher. I didn't, mind you, there wasn't much choice at that stage. You were either, as a girl, you were either a teacher, a nurse, or a secretary.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
so that was our choice level, and I became a teacher. That was my first job after school.
And where did you do your teaching?
I trained in Ballarat and taught in one of the Ballarat Catholic schools.
And primary or senior?
Primary.
Primary.
Yeah.
Enjoy it?
I did, but I was doing some really interesting work, which is interesting in terms of where I am now, on reflective stuff with little kids. I'd belonged to a youth group that used to have what we called a review of our lives, and we used to think about what was happening in our lives and what we wanted to do about them. And I began to do this with little kids, and after about 18 months teaching, I got the Catholic Diocese of Ballarat gave me a scholarship to travel overseas. So I studied overseas for 15 months. So that was the end of my teaching career.
Oh wow! And what was your study?
It was a diploma in religious education in Brussels, and but it was all about reflective practice and getting, which is at that stage was not very well known, but you would know now that we're all talk about reflective practice. And
funny you should mention that. Did you read my post on LinkedIn last night?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll come to that.
And you have had some discussions with me about the importance of reflection.
Oh, we have, yes. And during that time, did you have any other jobs outside of what you were working at, study like? I guess at boarding school you didn't have a chance to get a part-time job.
No, we didn't have that. No, and even at Teachers College, I was on a scholarship. Everybody was on scholarships. So all our education And that I feel pretty guilty now when I look at the HECS fees of kids, because I went through all my education, including a PhD, free.
Well, I think, Mark,
No cost
you're a benefit
whatsoever.
of that.
My oldest son keeps talking about the boomers and how they got it easy, and we did.
Oh yes.
I got paid to go to university. I got a scholarship to go,
Yes.
and it didn't cost anything.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
talking about PhD, and you just slagged off at PhDs in Birchip before. You do have a PhD, but can you explain?
I
what,
do,
Yeah.
and it was everything I have done in my professional life has never been part of a plan.
Mm.
And I never ever intended doing a PhD. My understanding of PhDs was if you wanted to go into academia, you did a PhD. I had no intention of going into academia, but what had happened is that I did a social work degree at Melbourne University, and I went on to do a master's because I was really interested I was doing a lot of work on consultative supervision with human service professionals, and I wanted to do a master's in that area to upskill myself. And at that stage, you really only had to do a master's if you wanted to do that sort of work. You didn't have to do a PhD. But it was quite a rigid approach at Melbourne University. And I struggled to fit into that approach, struggled to fit into a lot of approaches. And one of my lecturers, who was at Preston Institute at that stage, which later became RMIT, said, "Oh, come and do it with me. I'm not like that." So I moved across, and he said, "Look, this is too big. Let's make it a PhD." So that's how it happened. And I was, if you know anything about how universities work, like you've got to follow all these procedures, and you do this and then you do that and then you do this, and I just could not handle it. I could not handle it. And so the person I did it with said, "Look, we need to step back. You don't seem to know what you want to do," he said. And he got me thinking about, and I use this a lot in my work, who am I? What do I believe? What do I do? And how do I do it? And he said and he took me through a whole process, which was a couple of years actually of the PhD, unfolding that.
So what was the primary purpose of the thesis that you did?
It was becoming a reflective practitioner in an age of uncertainty. And what it was about was the key in the sort, and this is, I finished in 2003, so this is not the present day. In 2003, there wasn't much thought about ages of uncertainty, really. But the whole idea for me is that when we're in a very uncertain state, a disruptive state, that where there are no black and whites, no right and wrongs, we need to be reflective in our decision making. We need to stop and ask questions and be curious, and I think they're key leadership skills today.
So one of the things you do at the moment, you connected to Sacred Heart Secondary College here in Geelong and doing some work with the young students there. Can you just explain what that's about?
I'm not actually working with the students. I'm working with the subcommittee of the board that's on about wellbeing. And Sacred Heart College has a very big commitment to the wellbeing of its students. They're actually, by December this year, they will have built a big wellbeing centre at the college. It will
my
be opening
granddaughter
in
will
December.
get the benefit of that.
Yeah. And so they're and it's all connected with the mental health, and they have a great commitment to, neurodivergent girls and LGBTQA+. So they are, this wellness centre, and the work we're doing is to try to develop wellness through every aspect of the college. So it's not just in that centre, it's in every class, with every teacher. They have some amazing things like, for example, while it's in Newtown and it might be seen as a very exclusive school, they do have a lot of girls there, and they offer scholarships to girls that don't fit into that category.
Your PhD age of uncertainty, because I thought that's the terms that are being used today. We're in these uncertain times.
In 2003, I broke every academic rule in that thesis. I did not adhere to anything, and one of the key experts in Australia in this field of reflective practice actually refused to correct it and refused to put a name to her sheet saying she'd refused to accept
So who did you bribe in the end to get it done?
Well, we had 3. You only have to have 2 supervisors. I had 3 because we knew this was a possibility, and both the others passed it with no changes. And there's only about 1% of PhDs are passed with no changes. So for those who, and I, in all my work, I attract to me the people that like that journey of discovery approach. Anybody who wants anything, we want strategies and tips. We want coaching to do this, this and this. We want a program, and we want it done in half a day when it takes 3 months. They don't fit well with me, and they don't come to me. And I've had a couple of organisations one in particular, who didn't like my approach and wanted me to cut down my fee of $4,000. And I said, no, if you're not happy, I'm not going to charge you at all. So I feel that this whole reflective practice, journey of discovery, searching, learning, openness, and the work I've been doing with Bill's team, they've just been absolutely fantastic.
I just might explain that for a minute. But, I've been doing some work with a business in Geelong as an interim CEO and getting it ready for sale. And I realised in the process that a value of a business, particularly a family-owned business, is higher if it's self-managed and doesn't rely on the owners or the proprietors. And so I asked Maree to come in and, mentor over a 3-month period the next level of management, which I called the executive leadership team, that if no one was there, that business would still operate. And that's how that came about. And without going into detail or trying to identify the business, it's the feedback from those 3 people has been one of, we've never been involved in anything like this before. We've just sort of come to work, we've done our job, we've been told what to do, and now, hopefully, they are in a position where they can, or I shouldn't say hopefully, they make the decisions. And I just sit back and I monitor what's going on and have an overview of what's going on. So, and I often find this, Maree, that there is this level of management that never gets the opportunity to participate. Now, another activity you do, you're a mentor with Business in Heels. And Mark, we interviewed Lisa, who set Business in Heels. So what are you finding in mentoring women through Business in Heels?
I just love mentoring women. They are so energised about seizing the opportunities. And this is this is a thing that goes on a number of times a year with Business in Heels, and most of them are business owners, so they're not a profession. Not because a lot of my work in the past has been with professional people like service firms and
corporations.
Yes,
Yep.
But these are mainly business women, and a lot of women who are wanting to start businesses. So a lot of my work, and it's happened in Business in Heels in recent years, post-COVID, has been helping people move from a paid salary job into either a business or into a consultancy. And even the consultancies, a business. And a lot of people, they use their expertise to literally buy themselves a job in one way, but they know nothing about how to run a business and how to make money from it. So a lot of it can be like that. And we're put with a different person every time.
Okay.
We go there, and it's an hour and a half of helping them to shape their business. But it's also about giving them a taste of what mentoring can do for you.
So do you follow through?
No, we don't. And that's Lisa's philosophy there is to give them a taste of mentoring, hoping that they will then go on. And Business in Heels does offer that option for people to go on and do long-term mentoring.
Because sometimes as the mentor, the success factor for yourself is seeing the development of the mentee.
Yeah, that's the most, because I ran, up until COVID, I ran workshops, masterclasses, 2-day corporate retreats, and I couldn't do that with COVID. All my work is about self-leadership, and I didn't believe I could get the impact I wanted online. So I upped my mentoring, and it was so amazingly successful that I decided that that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my professional life, because I was set up, like, you don't earn the income from mentoring that you do from running workshops, but that wasn't my priority. And everyone that does mentoring with me says, I could not have done this without you. But the thing is, it's what they do when the mentoring's finished.
Yep.
That's the amazing part. And they have done the most extraordinary things, and it's because I believe someone has believed in them more than they've believed in themselves.
Yep, very good.
Giving them some support and encouragement, and I follow them up. I have coffee with, this is all at no charge. After a little while, how they're going. If I see a job that they should go to, I send it to them. I just give them a lot of support.
You want them to be successful.
Yeah.
I want to come back to EAP.
Yes.
And I noticed that you were a counsellor on an EAP program. For those that don't know what an EAP program is, it's an employee assistance program, and a lot of private businesses actually don't offer it. But you pay an annual fee to an organisation, which they have access to counsellors and all sorts of other activity. And it's confidential, so that your employees at any stage, if they've got an issue, whatever it may be, can make contact with an EAP provider in confidence, and the employer will never know who it was or what it was. You can get a report and just to find out if people have contacted it. So just explain, I guess, as an EAP counsellor, what do you think and I don't know how long ago you were doing this, but is it a valuable option for employers to offer? Because all the big companies do. But what are the sorts of counselling inquiries you get from people who use that helpline?
Well, I did it up until I came to Geelong in 2013 for about 9 years before that in Ballarat. And I did it with 2 organisations, UFS, which is like community care.
It's a pharmacy type group. That's right.
Yes. I did that with them for. I did it with Lynn McLennan, who was the CEO, through her 4 past CEO positions. So for 20 odd years or so. And then I also did it with Access, which is which was auspiced by Centrecare Bendigo, and there was a whole lot of organisations like the university involved in that. Now, Access gave 6 sessions. Now, any organisation that gives less than 6, I'd say it's not a great deal of help at all, because a lot of them only give 3. And but the ones that got 6, you could really achieve something, but it was always personal stuff. So it was relationship breakdowns, it was money issues, it was what else? Kids managing teenagers, those really personal.
In their home life.
Nothing to do with their
but that
work.
would be impacting their work.
Very much impacting their work. Yeah. And the thing that I would say about it, where it was most successful, was because of the manager or the CEO that sent them to me. Now, Lynn McLennan, who was the CEO, has been she's just retired from that position, but she had this capacity to sit down with the person and listen to what they were going through, and then saying, "I would like you to go and see Maree." So, and everybody that came said she was so understanding and but she didn't get engaged in it herself. And I think that's really important for any manager, and I say it all the time, or leader, that it's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I talk to people. You've got to have 1 foot in where you're sympathetic and understanding and empathetic, but you've got to have 1 foot out to be objective. And you can't get involved in that personal stuff of your staff. And so if they were able to get that balance and they then sent them to me, we usually got pretty good outcomes, and they were high in praise of their managers or leaders when that happened. But when they were sent along, I'd get a phone call saying, can I come and see you? I did no contact with the organisation. They'd tell me that they'd been sent, but no real contact with them. That wasn't very helpful at all.
Well, the other issue about it's got to be confidential, hasn't it?
Yes.
That's a key issue.
Yes.
And it's, I have I guess, through learned experience is my favourite saying, is that you've got people coming to work who are doing all sorts of things in their lives, and they're on committees everywhere, sporting committees, voluntary committees, they're making decisions, all the rest of it, and they're coming to work and they're basically treated as a number, right? And if you go back, and there was a recent article in Forbes magazine, and it was talking about Gary Hamel's well-known book, which is the most read article for Harvard Business Review ever. And it speaks about issues like that of where leaders, I guess, take that attitude, well, in the 1920s onwards, there are still leaders who think employees are just there to come to work, do a job and, get on with it, whereas they've got issues going on in their lives, and a smart CEO will recognise also their other potential. But if someone's not performing at work, my first question is, what's going on in their private lives?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Maree, you're spot on. It's 1 foot in each camp. You can't be all into the private side because it'll just pull you apart and the work won't work.
Yes.
So, no, I agree with you.
And I had a situation recently where working with a group where there was a problem with one of the staff, and they were very emotionally involved in this situation. And I had to work with them to disentangle them so that they could make constructive decisions about what to do here.
Yeah.
And I was extremely pleased with what they went through. And we did a debriefing afterwards to get them to realise what they had actually done in shifting from that highly involved situation into the one to make a very constructive leadership decision about what to do. So I think, and look, CEOs and senior managers are not terribly good at this from my perspective. I think they hesitate often. They don't have those, what we did call the soft skills, to be able to have those sort of conversations with their people.
Well, we've all been in that position, haven't we, Mark?
We have.
Right? That's right.
So Maree, how do people find you? What's the way to get in touch with you and use your services?
Well, I'm certainly, nowadays, I don't know how necessary it is to have a website nowadays, but I do have a website, which is mareeharris.com.au. But most of my interactions are on LinkedIn.
Yep.
That's my professional community. And on both LinkedIn and my website are all my contact details. So anybody who wants to make contact with me can do so there.
And I think, Bill, you'd highly recommend Maree based on your experience.
Based on a project that I was called to Maree in to do some work, because once again I didn't want to get involved in that. Because there was a lot of emotion in that. Some of them were pretty bruised from past experiences. So the smart thing was to get an external person in. Yeah. So yes, I would answer your question.
And you're seeing the results.
That's right. Yes, positive results.
And Bill is quite unusual.
He's an unusual person.
Yes. No, but for someone, a CEO, to make that sort of commitment, this is, as he said before, these are the middle management level, right? They make these commitments to their high-end executive teams and they send them off all over the place, and they come back and have all their discussions in their executive suites and nothing filters down. These middle managers are the people, they're the powerhouse of the organisation.
Well,
and they need to be given these opportunities. And this group particularly have seized this opportunity with open arms and enormous energy and commitment. And they've reaped the results.
There's some famous research that says that in any organisation that a person only believes their next level of manager. They don't believe what comes from anybody above that. So that's why I'm passionate about middle management. Anyway, thank you, Maree. That was really interesting.
Really interesting.
And makes sense of my podcast, of my LinkedIn profile last night.
Thank you, Maree.
Thanks, Bill and Mark.